folks, Stuart here from Jackhammer Forge. Hope you're all doing well. This is part one of a series of videos that I've put together to document my process in forging a replica of the Gilling sword. Now the Gilling sword is a 9th century Saxon or Anglian sword with a very highly decorated hilt covered in silver bands. The sword is now kept in the Yorkshire Museum in York and is well worth a visit if you ever get a chance to go. Part one will cover the forging of the blade. Now many Saxon and Viking swords, as some of you will probably know, had pattern molded blades, but I won't be doing a pattern molded blade for this project. For this project I'm going to be using a piece of carbon steel to form the sword blade.
So the first thing I do before actually putting hammer to steel, as it were, is to produce a full size drawing of whatever it is the project that I'm making. So if it's a sword, the sword blade and the hilt, so on and so forth. So I'm going to start forging the sword at the tip. Now I'm not just going to cut it straight across, it's actually going to be easier for me to form the tip of the blade by cutting along these chalk marks that I've made here. This is going to start the tapering process that I need to do to bring this into that nice sword tip shape for the sword.
Without further ado, let's get it hot. Taken up. Time to do the same to the other side. Sword tip looking a lot more like a sword tip. Not perfect yet, but there'll be plenty of time for fettling and tidying up. My sword tip looks a lot more like a sword tip now, but my bar is still pretty much parallel down its entire length. And Viking and Saxon swords were very much definitely not parallel. They taper all the way down from the tang down to the point. But they don't just taper along this way, they also taper along this way as well. So now the next process is going to be tapering the blade to shape both in this plane and in this plane. Finished forging the blade down in both planes, so it tapers from here, which would be the tang end of the sword, down to the point, and it tapers along the thin edge of the blade as well. So the next process is to start forming the fuller and the cutting edges. I can use my double fullering tools on the power hammer, which allow me to forge the fuller into both sides of the blade at the same time.
I can then tidy the fuller up at the end of the forging process on my linisher and grinders. Also, I can use this tool as well to start spreading the cutting edges of the blade, so I've not got huge amounts of metal to take out, and at the moment this is a little bit under width. It allows me to bring the width of the sword blade out to match the original a bit more accurately. Okay, we finished drawing out the tang, and as you can see, I probably could have done with chopping off a little bit more material because it's quite a long tang. I mean, that pretty much make a two-handed sword at this point, but it is better to have too much material rather than too little. I've also finished the fuller and drawing out the blade, the cutting edges of the blade, and I have marked on in chalk the outline of the original sword. So as you can see, the process of drawing out the cutting edges actually made my blade slightly wider than the original, but that's actually not a bad thing, because the process of drawing the cutting edges out, not sure if this is showing it very well, but the process of drawing the cutting edges out actually leaves a very rough and bumpy edge. So this way I can actually grind it back and have nice, clean, flat edges.